Hey there, and welcome to This Explainer. If you've ever looked at a massive government agency or some sprawling global corporation and thought, how on earth do these thousands of moving parts not just crash into each other every single day? Well, you're exactly in the right place. Today, we're literally unlocking the mechanics of bureaucracy.
So, here's the million-dollar question. Why do government agencies constantly clash? Or, I guess more importantly, how do the successful ones manage to avoid it entirely? By the time we wrap up this explainer, the actual answer to this is going to completely flip how you view organizations, bureaucracy, and honestly, probably your own workplace. Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. First, preventing institutional overlap. Second, locking boundaries with law. Third, aligning resources with mandates. Fourth, we'll look at the mandate summary matrix. And finally, number 5, the hidden root of conflict.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, preventing institutional overlap and the power of collaboration.
When you actually look at the data, a pretty stark contrast emerges. When agencies retreat into their own little silos and try to execute their mandates in total isolation, it practically guarantees failure. You get friction, endless turf wars. It's like two teams trying to build the exact same bridge from opposite sides without ever talking to each other. But collaborative arrangements? That's not just some corporate buzzword. It's the proven, empirically backed way institutions actually get things done without stepping on each other's toes. Collaboration is the literal engine of efficiency here.
And look, countries don't just sit around hoping for collaboration to happen organically, right? They engineer it using a very specific toolkit. We're talking about setting up interministerial committees just to force leadership into the same room. They deploy joint task forces for specific issues. They build shared digital platforms so everyone is looking at the exact same dashboard. Plus, they establish incredibly strict standard operating procedures for data exchange. Add in regulatory quality instruments, and you basically have this fortified system keeping everybody safely in their own lane while still driving in the exact same direction.
Which brings us to Section 2, locking boundaries with law and the legal enforcement of mandates.
Because let's face it, if a mandate is actually going to survive the pressure cooker of real-world governance, it has to be formalized. You need heavy-hitting legal instruments to give it actual teeth. We're talking acts of parliament, binding regulations, executive orders, comprehensive policy frameworks, and foundational organizational statutes. These are definitely not polite suggestions, you guys. These are the reinforced concrete walls that define exactly where one agency ends and the next one begins.
And in practice, these legal docs go way beyond your standard vague mission statement. They draw rigid, non-negotiable red lines, so they dictate exactly what an institution is responsible for, sure, but critically, they spell out what it is explicitly prohibited from doing. No gray areas. On top of that, they legally mandate how the agency has to interact with others and precisely what info it's obligated to share or receive. Literally, zero room for interpretation.
And this framework is absolutely the gold standard. It's echoed at the highest levels of international governance. In fact, UN guidance directly stresses that mandates must be regularly reviewed to avoid duplication and ensure clarity. You can't just pass a law in, say, 1995 and expect it to magically prevent clashes today, right? Organizations evolve, tech shifts, so those legal boundaries need constant, vigilant maintenance to keep the whole system from completely clogging up.
Okay, moving on to Section 3, aligning resources with mandates, or funding the framework.
Here's the thing. A legally binding mandate is completely useless if the agency doesn't actually have the tools to pull it off. True institutional readiness needs 3 pillars perfectly aligned. First off, budgets have to actually match the mandate. Second, human resources must have the exact skills required by law. And third, technology has to explicitly support those required information exchanges. If even one of these 3 is out of whack, agencies start cutting corners, and bam, that immediately triggers institutional clashes. You just can't ask a department to do a modern job with outdated funding or the wrong skill sets.
And because mandates and resources are just constantly shifting, countries rely on continuous review mechanisms to keep everything tightly stitched together. They run annual mandate reviews, super rigorous interagency coordination audits, performance evaluations, and policy coherence assessments. This whole constant auditing process is what satisfies those UN requirements we just talked about. It ensures that as budgets inevitably shift and governments change, the actual functional mandates stay crystal clear and completely relevant.
All right, let's look at Section 4, the mandate summary matrix. This is our macro view of conflict prevention.
So this master matrix essentially summarizes the entire ecosystem of a well-functioning institution. It goes from defining the core purpose to mapping out inputs and outputs all the way down to legal review. The real magic here is seeing how every single component actively works to eliminate overlap. Function mapping prevents duplicated services. Information flow mapping avoids conflicting processes. It's basically a brilliant top-to-bottom blueprint for absolute institutional clarity. When all these gears interlock just right, the whole machine runs completely friction-free.
Which brings us to our file stop, Section 5, the hidden root of conflict. And this is the non-obvious insight I promised you.
So here is the non-obvious truth that completely flips our understanding of bureaucracy on its head. Are you ready? Most mandate conflicts arise not from unclear roles, but from unclear information flows. Think about that for a second. When two departments are going at it, we automatically assume, oh, it's a turf war over territory or power or ego, but the data actually shows something else entirely. The chaos isn't about territory at all. It's about data. It's about who knows what and when they know it. Unclear information flow is literally the silent killer of organizational productivity.
When institutions fail to explicitly outline how data moves, friction is just an absolute guarantee. But when countries define these 4 specific steps, conflicts just plummet. Step 1. Exactly who provides the information. Step 2. In exactly what format it has to be delivered. Step 3. Exactly who receives it. And Step 4, honestly the most crucial one, exactly what decisions depend on that specific piece of info. When you rigorously map out those 4 steps, agencies stop stepping on each other's toes simply because the data dependency becomes totally transparent.
And this is exactly why modern governance frameworks have fundamentally evolved. You can't just rely on organizational governance anymore, stressing over org charts, hierarchies, reporting chains. You have to treat data governance with the exact same weight. If your data governance is weak, your organizational governance is going to collapse into infighting no matter how beautifully written your laws are. Data isn't just a byproduct, it is the actual lifeblood of the institution.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final thought. Take a look at your own organization, your own workplace, or hey, even your local government. Ask yourself, are the conflicts you're seeing every day really caused by unclear roles and bad attitudes, or are they actually caused by unclear information flows? I really hope this explainer gave you a fresh perspective and the analytical tools to find out for yourself. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and as always, keep asking the right questions.